Hello, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So last week, almost the same amount of houses sold as the week before. It was 415 the week before, 416 this week. The median price increased to $448,000, which is up a little bit, 4.7%. So, this is just a weekly stat. So they kind of vary a little bit, but it's right within our range. So staying very stable. And the inventory increased again by 129 to make it 9,411. So with that gives us 5.22 months of inventory, which is pretty much a balanced market. Somewhere between 4 and 6 is considered a balanced market. When you're looking at those 416 homes and the prices where they sold, 32 of them were under 250,000, 39 were between 250 and 300, 94 between 300 and 400, 87 between 400 and 500, 130 between 500 and a million, and 34 over a million. So the list to ask price ratio is at 96.73 overall. So that just shows there's a little bit more room than there has been. We've been at pretty much 97, 98. We're still at 97, 98 between the 300 to a million. We're still in the 97. We're at 95% over a million. We're at 96% we're at 90% under 250 and 96% 250 to 300. So the average days on the market for a home is 62 days at this point in time, and the average bedrooms is 4 and the average bathrooms is 5. So basically, when it comes down to it, that's a really healthy market when it comes to single-family homes in regards to what we're looking at today. Now, if we're looking at condos, townhomes, and villas, there were 113 last week, and there were 125 the week before. So pretty consistent, off a little bit, but not much. And that price is at $262,000 as the median price, and that's down like 1.6%. So pretty consistent as well. And that inventory decreased by 8, and so that inventory is at 4611. So I think that inventory decreasing is a good thing. It's not enough to show a trend and pretty much stay in the same, because with the condos, townhomes, and villas, we're at 9.42 months of inventory, which means it is definitely a buyer's market, and it has been for quite some time in the condos, townhomes, and villas. Of those 113, 52 of them are under 250. 15 are between 250 and 300. 25 between 300 and 400, 15 between 400 and 500, 5 between 500 and a million, and 1 of them over a million. So when you're looking at the months of inventory, like I said, 9.42 overall. Under 250, there were 8.02 months of inventory, 10.59, 10.96, and 9 months of inventory from 250 to 500. Then you go to 15 months of inventory, the 500 to a million. But over a million, there was only 1 of them that sold, and there's only 16 on the market. And so that's 4.15 months of inventory, the way that they have got it calculated here. So the thing that you really need to look at, is if you do have a condo and you're looking at selling it, you definitely have to know that it's a buyer's market, and there is a fair amount of negotiations and all that kind of stuff that might happen. Now, the list to ask price ratio, however, is at 96.33, which is pretty similar to the single family home. So it doesn't make a big difference there, but the days on the market is 83 versus 64 for the single family homes. So basically, when you're looking at it and you're thinking about what's going on, our market is still staying very stable. And, I was talking to somebody this last week, and they were talking about, that they were telling me that there aren't as many people moving to Florida, and, what's going on with the housing market and all of that kind of good stuff. And basically the bottom line is that people need to know that houses are selling, but it is very price sensitive in many markets. And people are looking for specific things. I've got a couple of buyers that are looking for very specific things right now when it comes to homes, and they're waiting for that particular type of home to come out. They want to have a house that has no rear neighbors, that they've got a nice view, whether it's a lake or a pond, they don't care, but they want some kind of nice view and not rear neighbors. And they want it to be fairly new. They want it to be at least 7 years new or better. We actually looked at a home for them that was about 20 years old. And when they looked at what they were going to have to put into it to bring it to the standards that they wanted, they said, we're just better off going with something that's a lot newer. Because this particular house, it was very nice and everything, but it did need a new roof. It needed a new air conditioner. It needed a new hot water heater. All the flooring in the upstairs and the stairs needed to be completely redone. It was laminate and had probably been there for the 20 years. And so it was definitely on its last leg when it came to that. And the kitchen counters were Formica, and they've replaced the granite in their place that they're in now with quartz, and so they would want to have a higher end kitchen countertop and that kind of thing too. The bathroom seemed very dated and all of that kind of good stuff to them, and they have the discerning taste in regards to what they're looking for. So basically, the price point was fine and fit their budget and everything, and didn't even have that much of a backyard view, but they thought the neighborhood would be okay for them. But then when they looked at the house, they were just very disappointed in the way that that it looked in regards to all of that kind of good things. So unfortunately, that's what sellers are dealing with today on a consistent basis. And so you definitely have to have your best foot forward when it comes to doing anything when it comes to selling your house. You have to have everything in pristine, move-in ready condition. And if it's not, then people are just going to say, sorry, we'll be able to do something else. And that's the thing right now. People have choices. And it's really hard sometimes for sellers to get that in their mind, because just a few short years ago, in the end of 21 and the beginning of 22, houses were kind of going like hotcakes until the interest rates changed, and the prices were going up, and you could pretty much put whatever price you wanted to on a house and it would sell right away. And so the market is different now, and so whether you're a buyer or a seller, you might think, oh, I'm a buyer and I've got my choices and I can do whatever I want to and all of that kind of thing. And of course you can, but you might end up hurting yourself as you go along. I was talking to one of my clients that I was working with, and they recently bought a house for, it was right around $2 million that they bought that house for. And the bottom line is that when they bought it from a gentleman that didn't know for sure where he was going, so they allowed him to lease it back and all of that kind of good stuff. And so they were just thankful that they got the house that they wanted, because they were able to sneak in there even before it came on the market. It was an off-market property, but the bottom line is that they really wanted they wanted to be able to be in the house, but they gave him a couple of months that he could rent it back. And they called me because, there was a question in who pays the utilities and all of that kind of good stuff. And just like any other rental, the guy had to pay the utilities for those last couple of months that he's going to be living there. But basically, as a buyer, they were able to find the house that they wanted, and negotiate some things on it. People are still finding a lot of houses off market and everything out there. And so when your house is on the market, it might not be the best thing for you, but you definitely have to look at it and see what the scoop is. And I've got an off market house right now that the seller he really doesn't want to have that stigma of sitting on the market. He doesn't need to sell it. but he at the same time would love to sell it. So basically, there are a lot of those houses out there as well, and that's why you need to be working with a professional in order to find them. But in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So can you believe it? We are almost to the 4th of July. That's coming up next Friday. So it'll be a holiday weekend. And so lots of great things are going on. We're actually going to be in the parade in Celebration again. So it's actually starting at 8 o'clock from my understanding this year. So that's going to be even nicer. It did start at 9 o'clock before, and by the time you were done in that parade, it was quite warm. So I think starting at 8 o'clock, it might actually be kind of cool and all of that kind of good stuff. So in Celebration, they are having the parade at 8, and then the fireworks are in the evening, obviously, and there's always a lot more people at the fireworks than there are at the parade, but there are always a lot of people at the parade too. So if you feel like it, come on down and say hi to us and all that kind of good stuff. But some of the things that are going on, July 1st is always a time where new laws go into place for the state and everything. So this year is no exception. And so there's some of them that pertain to real estate, and that's what I'm going to kind of cover now. And so what some of them are in regards to condo law reforms. So the Structural Integrity Reserve Studies, the SIRS, that deadline for completing them is extended to December 31st, 2025. And the milestone inspections are applied to buildings with 3 habitable stories or more, narrowing the scope from previous legislation. So, and then the buyer's right to cancel. They now have 7 days to cancel a contract after receiving the governing documents when it comes to condominium. And you might say, well, what's all this stuff going on with condominiums? There's been a lot of condominium reform in Florida ever since the tragedy of Surfside, which is down there by Fort Lauderdale and Miami and that whole area. And basically that was a condominium that collapsed, and it killed about 100 people, and it was a high rise, and there were some structural problems, and they still haven't come out with the full reason in regards to how that all happened. But from my understanding, the preliminary things that they've said about it is that there was concrete, obviously, around the pool on the outside of the structure. And for some reason that gave way, and then the whole half of the building collapsed. So it was very tragic and everything that happened. And so obviously they wanted to make sure that that never happened again. So they wanted to make sure that there were these deep dives into condominiums to make sure that there are no structural problems that exist with these buildings. And so some of those examinations are quite expensive, and $70,000, $80,000, somewhere in that range, that the condominiums didn't necessarily have them in their budgets. And then when they did them, they did find some other flaws that existed that needed attention. So over the last several years, there have been a lot of condominiums that have had higher than, I would say, normal condo fees and monthly fees. And that's to get the reserves up. That's to repair a lot of these issues and that kind of thing. So the state's trying to work with these condominium associations, but that's a part of the reason why I think that the condos are slower to sell. I think it's also why, we've got months of inventory and that kind of thing in there, and why it's really important that you maybe look through the documents and see kind of what's going on and all of that kind of stuff in that particular development. And I know that, in some areas there are condominiums that the monthly fees are as high as $1,000, and, you're going, well, what all does that include? And it does include the exterior of the building, the roof, all of those kinds of things. But there are many things that are missing when it comes to that, it's not like you're getting your air conditioning or something like that that's covered for it. So that definitely affects people's ability sometimes to pay as well as wanting to pay, because the ability to pay comes into effect because basically the bottom line is when somebody is buying a condominium and they're buying it with a loan, what happens is that loan has to, that amount that they're paying in a condo fee is also considered in their monthly fee that they've got, and there's limits and everything in regards to what you can have in getting a loan. So you have to make more money to afford a lower price condominium. And so really it definitely is something that people need to be aware of and know and really look at. And so we definitely work with buyers. There's a lot. It's still a great thing to have our condominiums out there, but you just have to go into it with your eyes wide open, knowing what you're looking at. Some other things that are going on in the real estate world that are coming on board July 1st is that electronic notices are known to be okay for delivery and record keeping. And so landlords and tenants can now agree to receive notices via email with specific requirements for delivery and record keeping, probably that you've got to answer back and let them know that you've actually received it. But hey, we're coming into the 21st century here. And then this is another thing that I think is really good too. It's got reusable tenant screening reports, that landlords can accept reusable tenant screening reports, and certain fees related to these reports are prohibited. So basically, one of the things that happens when you're getting a rental, obviously, is that there are reports that are done on you. And when we're placing a tenant for an owner, we do credit, criminal, and eviction checks, and that's, part of our screening process that we go through. Now, for that, there is a fee, and it's $65 per person that is 18 and over that has to go through those checks. And so that's just part of common procedure. So the challenge is that if you go to one person and you do the credit check and they're like, well, we don't accept you, then you might go to another company and and then you have to do the credit check again and pay for it again. And so it really is not fair really to the tenant. If you've gotten one check done, you should be able to reuse that for other people. And so that's kind of what this is going on, that landlords can accept reusable tenant screening reports, and certain fees related to these reports are prohibited. So you don't have to pay for them to be done again. And so that's one thing. Another thing is basically for squatter removal for commercial property owners. New laws streamline the process for commercial property owners to remove squatters by showing them to file complaints with sheriff and pursue immediate eviction. So there were squatters' rights that were definitely curtailed about a year ago. Maybe it was 2 years ago. Time flies. And, so that you're easier to get people out of homes, but it didn't necessarily work for commercial or vacation properties. So now on vacation rental owners, public lodging establishments like hotels and vacation rentals can more easily remove problem guests by clarifying temporary stay definitions and allowing police intervention. So that's something that definitely is new coming in to Florida as of July 1st. And so I think I read that there were about 140 different new laws that were going into effect, basically starting July 1st. So how many of them actually affect me, I don't really know. But basically, there's some geoengineering that I'm looking at. Let's see what else there is. Hazardous waste. None of that stuff definitely affects me. So there's a lot of different laws that exist out there, but I think I've hit the ones that basically, for the most part, deal with real estate with the ones that you and I will be in touch with and dealing with. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So there are clever ways to make tiny rooms bigger. And like I was talking about earlier in the first segment, is that basically, the real estate market is definitely in Central Florida one that is getting to be more and more a buyer's market. And so with that, as a seller, you have to really stand out, look great, do what you've got to do to make things, attract people to your house. So the first thing that's going to be is pictures. I mean, obviously, if people are looking online and they see something that they don't like in the pictures, they're not even coming to your house. So that is the first thing that's really important. But there are some clever ways to make tiny rooms look bigger, so I thought I would go over those right away. And bold, space-saving furniture and mounted sconces maximize small rooms, and that includes doing glass walls, mirrors, and reflective finishes boost light. Calm colors unify without clutter. So basically what this is saying is that you want to have tons of mirrors, big mirrors, all that kind of good stuff. And that's going to make a tiny room look bigger. And then if you've got bold pieces in it, maybe with some pops of red or something like that, or bright blue, or whatever your favorite color is that you want to do, it's going to make that room look bigger. One of the main things that when it comes to staging your house and making it stand out is that you definitely want to have each room that you've got specifically for that room. If somebody comes into your house and they see, oh, you've got your office and your living room and your exercise equipment all in the same room, they're going to say, okay, this house doesn't have enough room. It's too small. I can't do what I need to do. And that's a problem, right? And so when people come in there and they're thinking, oh my gosh, these people don't have enough rooms to do all that they need to do, I'm not going to have enough room to do what I want to do either. And so that's why the minimalist is kind of what it is, that you want to have your room for just one thing. Now, I know that, in the past in different properties and stuff that I've lived in, I did have multiple things going on in the same room. But when it comes to actually selling that particular property, you want to make it like it has one room, like one thing that you're going to do with it. And that's basically the bottom line in regards to what you want to do that's going to help you sell that home faster and for more money, is that you want to have everything lined up the way that you need to. One interesting tidbit that I found out there this week is it says about 1/5, 20% of recent home buyers considered their pet when choosing a neighborhood. So did you know that there are more households with pets than children? And the pets are a driver of the economic activity, namely home buying. About 1/5 of recent home buyers considered their pet when choosing a neighborhood. Share that increases among unmarried couples and single women buyers. So according to the census, the share of families with children under 18 living in homes continues to decline, and the share of families with children under the age of 18 in 2024 was at 39%, down from 52% in 1950. It's likely due to two reasons. Birth rates overall have been declining, and a large share of baby boomers households have already seen their children leave the nest. But it's also reflected among home buyers. In 58% of the home buyers had children under the age of 18, and in 2024, just 27% of the home buyers had a child under the age of 18. And while the number of children has declined in the last 20 years, it was an increase in pet ownership. So 71% of American households own a pet, and that's up from 56% in 1988. And through COVID, it's saying Americans adopted pets for companionship and entertainment. However, the trend has since eased from its recent peak, but not too much. So basically, and I think that is absolutely, I hear it all the time from people that I'm looking for homes for and all of that kind of stuff. They want to have that fenced in yard for their pets. They want to make sure that that their pets are protected and that they're easily able to go outside and all of that kind of good stuff. And so a lot of people want a fenced in yard strictly for their pets. And it's definitely, what they're looking for, and they want to make sure that it's a pet friendly neighborhood. And a lot of neighborhoods, have the the pickup stations and all of that kind of stuff as you go along. But it's definitely a trend and something that everybody looks for and wants to do. So that's another thing to consider when you're looking to sell your house, is that you've got it pet friendly, that people can do it. Now, I have had people that did not want to buy a house that somebody previously had a pet, and they were allergic to cats. And so if it had a cat in the last 20 years, it was going to affect them. So you can understand that and that kind of thing. And, I remember a couple houses we went into and they said there weren't any cats because we checked before we went to look at them because we knew it was going to be a no-go. And they said that there weren't, and they didn't have any cats at that point in time, but there had been cats in that house at some point in time. And so we walk in the door and it's like he starts itching all over, and it's like, so, okay, I guess, well, this is a no-go, right? And he's like, oh yeah, this is a no-go. So I'm sure there's ways that you can definitely, get those things there, and everybody's not allergic to cats, but there are some people that are. So you've just got to, make sure that your house is the best for all of the people around and all of that kind of good stuff. So, so basically, one of the things that they were talking about is micro housing gains ground in Florida and beyond. So what this is this is a small space living trend is growing around the nation as renters want lower price points and amenity-rich, transit-oriented communities. So tiny apartments with a view. Recent trends have shown people are adopting a less is more mindset with just about everything, living spaces included. Now called small space living, the phenomena has taken a nation by storm, especially navigating recent economic trends and high cost of housing. Renters of all ages are drawn to lower price points and amenity-rich, transit-oriented communities. So this trend is a stark shift from the early 2000s when many individuals preferred single-family homes in the suburbs. As the rental market has shot up in recent years, which I'm sure all of you guys have seen around town, micro-unit apartments and studio apartments in the 300 to 400 square feet range are becoming more popular. Personally, I need a little more space than that. But cities out west have been leading the pattern, especially San Francisco. Almost 15% of all housing in the city are undersized, with some apartments measuring less than 130 square feet. So that's like less than most hotel rooms, right? And, almost 30% of its new rentals are set up to be micro units. So basically, it's affordability and density are two primary drivers, and they go hand in hand. So that's interesting that that's going on. What the people that I talk to, for the most part, they want to have a little bit of land, or they want to have a little bit of space, and they can't believe how close the houses are to each other. I remember when it started to be kind of close to each other, I think it was probably about 10, 15 years ago, and people would go, I could put my arms out straight and I can touch both houses and all of that kind of stuff, which definitely does exist. But basically, I think affordability is definitely a big thing that comes into play. And when it comes down to it, real estate has always had that notion of location. And so this is just another example of how that is fitting into a modern day world. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407 566-2555. So an interesting article that I saw this week was talking about hidden home equity tax hits longtime owners. And you might go, well, what is that? So millions of homeowners risk surprise tax bills on sale profits due to capital gain limits that haven't changed since 1997, despite soaring prices. So you can imagine. So there is, on your taxes, your federal taxes, what that there is that homeowner credit. So I think it's limited to $500,000 or something like that for married couples, and I think it's $250,000 for a single person. So that amount went into effect in 1997, and it hasn't changed. So basically, if you bought your house for, say you bought it for $500,000 and then you sold it for $1.2 million and you were a couple, then $500,000 of that is not going to be any capital gains or anything like that. But but then that $200,000 between the 1 million and the 1.2, just because I'm doing easy numbers, that would have capital gains on that $200,000, and that's where they're getting these surprise tax bills, because when they've lived in their home a long time and the values have gone up, it's when they've sold it, they've gotten these big gains, and it's bigger than the tax gain that you can get. So if you're in that position, I think that what you should really do is you should really look at that and maybe consider that when it comes to, what you're willing to take in a price. Because, when you're looking at that, you're going to be able to maybe price your property correctly, and correctly meaning that somebody's going to want your property at that price, and then you're not going to have the gains that are potentially, going to give you more federal tax money, depending on that. So basically, you have to look at the whole big picture, is what the bottom line is. And, and we have had a large increase. When I moved to Central Florida, the housing median price in 2000 was probably somewhere around 180, I want to say, somewhere around there. And now the median price is well over 430. So if at that time, maybe you bought a house for 300, now it's worth like 900 or $1 million, and you're a couple, you're definitely over that 500,000, gain. And so the way that works, that tax break works, from my understanding, is that you have to have lived in your home the last 2 out of the last 5 years. And it was your primary residence, obviously, for 2 of the last 5 years. And then you can get, you can get up to $500,000 that is tax-free in your gain for your federal taxes. So that's kind of what the scoop is and how that all worked and does work today. But because the prices of property have gone up so much, there's some people that definitely are above that, and then they're getting hit with these tax bills that they didn't expect. So basically, that's just something, like I said, to keep in mind and know about, and then, accordingly, you can go from there. So I'm going to finish up the show here with what's going on with your credit scores and how that helps, because your credit score definitely is going to, when you're purchasing a house, affect the interest rate that you get on the property that you purchase, and how all that's going to work out. So basically, there's some key factors that go into your credit score, and a lot of times on Credit Karma, it'll tell you a little bit about what these are, but one of the most important is payment history, and that's basically when you pay your bills. Missed payments, especially if they go unpaid for a long time, can cause serious damage to your score, even one late payment might bring it down more than you expect. So it's a good idea to set reminders or use automatic payments, and this way you avoid forgetting a due date. Now, one of the things that is very interesting in this payment history is that when you're getting a mortgage, they definitely don't like to see lates. And I know that there was a customer that I was working with not too long ago that had a late on a car, and it was because they had their debit card was changed and they forgot to change it on their car payment or something like that. So it was late, but they had to wait a year until that late fell off in order to get the best deal that they could get on a mortgage. So they did, but it's something that you definitely may not want to do. Next thing is credit utilization. So you might think, well, what's that? Well, so say you have a credit card for $10,000 and you've used 1,000 of that 10,000. Okay, you've only used 10% of the credit card. So you have a lot of credit available on that card. You're not using all that they've given you. And so as a result of that, they reward you for that and give you a good score for that. So the rule of thumb is try to use less than 30% of your total credit limit, and that will help you out with that. So that's what the scoop is on that. The next thing that affects your credit are new credit applications. So every time you apply for new credit, a lender performs a credit check. This type of check is known as a hard inquiry, and it appears on your credit report. And having several in a short period of time can negatively impact your score. It might signal that you're in a financial trouble or that you're taking on more than you can handle. So that's something that you want to look at as well. So you only want to apply for new credit when it's truly needed. Spacing out applications can help avoid many hard inquiries at once. And also keep in mind that opening new accounts lowers your average account age, which can also impact your score. So you want to be selective and thoughtful about your credit choices. Next is credit history length. How long have you had credit also plays a part. Lenders feel more confident when they can see how you've handled credit over the years. A longer credit history usually means a more stable score, assuming your record is positive. If you're new to credit, this part will take time to improve. So you try not to close your oldest credit card accounts unless there's a strong reason. Even if you don't use them, keeping them open helps build length. And the age of your accounts affects your average credit age, and a longer age can work in your favor when your score is calculated. And then the next thing is credit mix. Different kinds of credit can also influence your score. There's two main types: revolving credit like credit cards and installment credit like loans or mortgages. Managing both types demonstrates your ability to handle different forms of credit, giving lenders a more complete view of your financial behavior. You don't need to open new accounts just to mix things up. Instead, try to manage what you already have. If you only have a credit card, take out a small loan, and repaying it on time could help. And the key is show consistency and responsibility across different types of credit. And basically, the bottom line is consistency pays off. Why improved credit scores don't happen overnight. Steady habits can bring lasting results. You want to focus on what matters most: paying on time, keeping balances low, and avoiding too many new accounts. With time and patience, your score can move the right direction and open more financial opportunities. Even small changes like setting up auto pays or reviewing your reports for errors can make a meaningful difference. Building good credit is a long-term investment in your financial well-being. And financial well-being is one of the most important things when you're getting a loan for a house. It's really critical that the better credit score you've got, the better loan that you're going to get, and the more that you're going to qualify and all of that kind of good stuff. It just makes life easier. So it's one of those things that we like to tell you about. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com. And we will see you next week. Have a great 4th of July, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.